Hi, and welcome to Wellness Watch. We're tackling another part of wellness. This is, by the way, Patty Friedman is still here with me, hanging on.
Haven't left.
Thank heavens.
Yeah.
We talk about the biggest issues in wellness, and we've talked about smoking, we've talked about nutrition, and there's something even bigger in a way, and I don't mean that as a pun, but obesity has become so a pandemic in this country. It's just, numbers are staggering, staggering.
It's crazy where we are as a country.
Yeah.
And we seem to stand out
We
amongst
do,
a lot of countries.
A lot of things you can point to, and the other countries they eat without all the fast foods and the prepared foods. They eat the Mediterranean and that kind of thing, which is very healthy.
Right.
Over here, there's a lot of bad eating, we know that, and it's sort of so attractive that, I mean, who doesn't like a certain French fry from a certain fast food place?
Oh, I indulge, I'll admit it.
I love them.
I admit it.
But it's something really important because it is sort of out of control, and I think even the professionals would use that
Right.
description.
And there's a lot of research and a lot of studying going on about it, and it's not new. I mean, we hear about it, but the thing that is really scary, Judy, is that we keep hearing about it, and there's
I know,
not a lot
no-
of change.
no changing.
There's not improvement, and
The habits, again, we talk habits a lot to the point of being,
it's no, I don't think it's
but a
nauseating.
habit is so critical in every phase of wellness. You cannot disprove that. I mean,
Right.
it's arguable. So if you start at a very young age eating poorly, and it's really not your choice as a child, you're eating what's there. So if your parents aren't really educated or able to put the right thing on the table, you almost don't have a prayer by a certain age. You see very hefty kids at 10, 11, 12. It's nothing they've done.
It's the environment that they've grown up in. And that's a lot of the studies have shown that kids are driven by what they know. And so whether it's lack of proper nutrition or lack of physical activity, the family really takes a critical role. But not only the family and what the industry is trying to get more involved is how schools and communities and workplaces can all start having a greater impact
Totally.
and getting there earlier.
I heard the other day about a school that has now banned tag as a game. You know, what's left? That's a really healthy game. You're not hurting anyone. I mean, they've taken away dodgeball and all that, but that's just running. What could be better for a child at recess?
Activity. Yeah.
And the same person who mentioned that was talking about childhood obesity. They are so much more sedentary now with their screens in the house.
Oh, absolutely. It's
we-
huge.
They aren't told to go out and play and have a pickup game of something. They just aren't.
Yeah.
So they're allowed to be in the house and encouraged to be, really, in some places.
Well, there's such a different definition of what play is
Right.
from when we grew up. So that's really crazy about the whole tag thing because that's just doesn't make
counterproductive.
sense. And if people are worried about pushing too hard or whatever, that's just part of learning life and playing games. And it's ironic because I think schools need to bring more of recess. And I've even joked and said that I think workplaces need to bring back work fun in the sense of recess or play or making it less stressful. But in regards to the kids and being, at school and the nutrition values, I think there is an effort and there is a movement to try and get more quality food or healthier food within the schools. But it comes down to costs. We know that, and it comes down to what's available. But we have to invest in our future, if you will, and in the kids.
You
And
do think that when you see a child that really is heavy, and you think, it's a lot of processed foods, and we know that. We know that's the handy, quick,
it's a quick.
easy thing to do.
And when you have single parents and, or one family homes, when people are working, it's a struggle because it makes it hard for them to have what they might consider a healthier meal. So it's easier to go to the prepared box process, whatever you want to call it, food.
When you're frazzled, you do the quick.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because not only does that cause issues with the kids being inside and not active and playing, when they do go to school, if they are obese, it sets up another whole
Yes.
issue of being bullied
Then the
and
shaming
picked
comes in
on, the
and
shaming, and so the kids are just set up to fail. And so it's really important that families are educated and schools are educated and
Right.
communities are educated to try and make a change, make a difference in what we have
Right.
available for the kids
And
and
we
be
know the main
active.
causes of obesity. I mean, overeating, number one.
Yeah.
That's just kind of plain and simple. Activity, sedentary, one or the other. Sedentary people are going to put on weight. Sometimes it's metabolism, and that's something you're born with, essentially, and it's a part of you that you may not be able to change. So there are a lot of things that just actually cause it besides eating. And then obesity itself causes a multitude of problems.
Yeah, and it can start early. I mean, we've talked about the kids, but then when you carry it over into to the younger teens or
Right.
and then adulthood and stuff like that, it just causes so many different things. It's whether it's stress, there's mental issues that come along with it, diabetes, heart. There's just
Totally.
it just opens up the door for your life to continue to be unhealthy.
It goes to almost a lot of other ailments. Gallbladder.
Yeah.
I used to work in the OR, and we had a lot of gallbladder patients, and it was the 2F rule. It was female and fat. And females predominantly were the people with gallbladder problems, and they were often the heaviest. So it was a funny game when they'd see someone come in. If they say gallbladder, it's a woman who's probably a female, fat, and 40.
Interesting.
But gallbladder, it can destroy
yeah,
the
sure
arthritis
can.
part of things because you're not moving. You're just sitting there collecting
Yeah.
calcium.
And it's so hard once, I've worked with some people that have struggled with obesity and, have gone through a lot of changes with their weight
Yes.
and at different levels and different scales and different, and no pun intended there, scales, because I don't believe in scales.
I don't either.
But in the sense of working with people that are dealing with it, it's really a mindset, and it's helping people really think about how did I get here, and addressing those demons and addressing barriers and trying to get them to acknowledge up front, when did it start? Was it in childhood? What was your family, upbringing like, and how did you get here? And it can be completely different, even with people in the family
Sure.
and how you go. So it's
That's
really,
what, sometimes they need therapy to get to the point of tell me a little more about yourself, and then you find out they had a bad upbringing or they were abused or things that just led them to find that
depression,
comfort, which we all know food it can be.
oh, absolutely.
So they need to they kind of dig deep to figure out what happened and how to remedy it and move on past it and then get into a healthy.
And like we've said, change is hard,
Oh.
and putting those habits in place. But the biggest change is even acknowledging, similar to when we talked about smoking, until that person has that aha moment or addresses or acknowledges or admits, whatever word you want to use, until they can actually say, I am obese or I am struggling with my weight,
Yes.
whatever they term it as. That's the first thing, and
Yes.
then you can go from there and try and figure out how they got to that
It's
point.
like AA, where you have to say, I am an alcoholic, I am obese. I mean, it's a hard thing
Mm-hmm.
to say because sometimes the self-awareness isn't there. They know they're large and they know they're
Right.
bigger than they should be, but they don't think it's a problem.
Right. And obesity, too, you got to think about overweight and obese.
Right.
And they're different. I mean,
Oh.
obesity is where you just have too much or excess body fat, and overweight is where it's not proportioned the right way.
Right.
And so that's the other thing, too, is really helping people identify where they are at and what
Some
level.
of the measurements people do, I used to do these for clients in the gym. A lot of the people who are perfect specimens test as obese because their body mass index is so out of whack with all the muscle and the
Oh, that's another whole conversation, right?
But right there, but
Yeah.
I can be overweight. I've never been obese,
Right.
and most people are a little, not most, but a lot, or a little overweight.
Yeah.
And doctors don't seem to get too upset about a little overweight.
No, it's when you've...
My doctor said I'd rather have you a little over than under.
Interesting.
You're going to have fewer health problems if you're a teeny bit over than way under where people think they should be and
yeah.
they should not.
And, it's simple changes. But, when people finally do recognize, well, I don't think it's recognized, but when they acknowledge that they want to do something about it, it's then helping them to get on the right path, make the right plan to change their environment. We talked about its environment, what's in your surroundings, and
Right.
how are you going to change that.
Right.
And like we've said earlier, it's coming back to, getting active, and it's baby steps. Again, it took the hardest thing. I think sometimes we all, as a culture, want immediate results.
Everything.
With everything. We want immediate service. We want this. We've become such a I want it now society that in this issue, you're not going to get that. And people have to realize that it's going to take a while to get to where you are. It's going to take a while.
Significant amount of time to
Yeah.
get to where, if you're obese.
Yeah.
There's nothing quick and overnight about losing that.
No.
It wouldn't be healthy if you were losing tons in a hurry.
Right.
That's never if I hear anyone on the TV where they talk about 14 pounds in a week, I want to say, no, that's not what most people would recommend.
Because you're going to gain that and then
That-
some back.
Yeah, and that's a lot of water, and then you.
Yeah.
It's just hard. People get their hopes up by that stuff, and people
Yeah.
shouldn't be led astray on how fast or slow it is to fix it.
And I've not heard of many people that have done it alone.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but it is very clear that you need support.
It is.
You need people to hold you accountable.
Yep.
It helps you, if you stumble, to get back up and not be discouraged, because this is an issue where people can easily get
True.
discouraged and fall back into their old
And
ways,
then
if
they
you
say,
will.
well, I flunked that, I can't do it again.
Right.
I'm not meant to succeed,
Yeah.
which is really we seem to have a train wreck happen in the studio.
That's about
This is
beauty
a
of being
first.
in here,
This
is
is a first.
having the train right outside the
If you guys
building.
know where we're located, you can understand why we're hearing trains. Every now and then we time it so we get in between two train runs, but
Not today.
yeah, the fix is really, I think your word on support, because I think support groups and support people are key in every negative phase of health.
Yeah.
You need people around. That's why Weight Watchers does well. They have a lot of cheering going on.
Yeah.
I mean, that helps some people. They need that.
Yeah, it's the checking in, and whatever works for you as a person is
Right.
really important, and you've got to feel good about whatever it is.
Right.
And I can't say enough that it's okay for people to fail in the sense of not losing weight in a particular week or putting a pound on. I've worked with people that have, been with Weight Watchers, and they might struggle one week, and trying to just remind them that it's a process and that
Right.
don't give up on yourself, because you'll get there. In most people that have struggled with all these things through their life
Right.
have to climb bigger mountains,
Some big ones out.
if you
And
will.
As a disclaimer, we're not here to promote or denounce a program like Weight Watchers.
Oh, yeah,
There are
yeah.
a lot of them out there. And there's something out that some people just find the niche in that area,
Mm-hmm.
and with that support or the planning,
Yeah.
it works wonders. So don't get me wrong, we're not bashing anyone.
Yeah, no,
Or
no,
promoting.
completely. Right, right.
I'm trying to think, we were talking also about well, I had a list, and I'm going to just check it, because
Well, the cost.
obesity,
We talked.
first of all, heart disease, big time.
Huge,
Diabetes, huge.
huge. Sleep is,
Apnea.
right, sleep apnea is a huge one with,
Oh my goodness, you look in the sleep study program, and there's that's where heavy people go.
right, because
to
of the
learn
neck
not
and,
breathe wrong or snore. Or,
yeah.
But also arthritis, stroke. I mean, these are things that are huge problems.
And they're preventable. That's
Yeah.
the thing. They're preventable.
Yeah.
Though every one of us has control of what we put in our mouth and what we do with our feet.
We do.
And if we have to hold ourselves responsible, I mean, it's good to have an accountability
Yeah.
partner, but it really is about
It's what you do when that partner's not around.
right.
You know, it's
And
what
you
you
have
do
to
in your
hold
own world.
yourself
Yeah.
responsible for what you're doing.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's really up to each of us to take those first steps, but then, you know, build that community around you.
Yes.
And that's where it's really important. And, you know, when you start talking about all the things that you have listed, we talked a little bit about the cost of,
You had some numbers.
yeah, so
my gosh.
statistically that, and well, let's say the medical care costs of obesity in the United States is estimated to be about $150 billion.
With a B.
A B.
Billion.
B. And that is the result of all these symptoms that we've
All the
talked about.
ailments and sicknesses that come from it, they aren't free.
No,
You've got to, and
no.
if they're all in hospitals regularly or at their doctor's offices regularly,
Right.
which they will be with any of those things we mentioned.
Right. And then from a work standpoint, which we talked about too, if you take about $3.4 billion of that total amount is from absenteeism, from work. So it's just a vicious cycle
It is.
that we've put ourselves and our communities, our families, our workplaces, everything that we're involved in
Yeah.
when we get to that point. So it's really important that, you know, like we mentioned earlier, that the schools support the kids, workplaces support their employees, the communities support everybody, whether it's through the rec department or resources
Right.
in the community.
And it affects people around you. It affects relationships.
Oh,
People
sure.
divorce over this kind of problem. Parents or kids, there's a lot of shaming that goes on. That never helps.
No.
That does not encourage
No.
correction.
And the social piece of it that we've talked about how important social interaction is.
Right.
And when someone is obese and they are feeling depressed and they don't get out, they're more apt to stay at home. And studies show that they are more apt to, you know, be with themselves, an introvert, and not go out as much. So you lose that whole social interaction
They're
piece.
shamed.
And that is just, you know, really difficult. And you want to, when I see people that are just so beating themselves up, and to get them out
Yeah.
and feel better about it, and it's just that.
And it's hard. None of this is easy. We
No,
never have talked
no.
about problems that are
No,
easy.
no.
But anything to do with health is hard
Right.
to get that ball rolling. And I remember I worked with trainers for a long time, and I needed that. I just needed the accountability because I hadn't had the discipline to do it myself. And I wasn't going to show up and get on the scale and have gained. But you have to kind of eat as if everyone's looking instead of dancing when no one's looking. You know that phrase?
Yeah.
I just think you've got to pretend there are people watching you if you can't do it yourself.
Yeah. And it's an addiction, just like
it is.
smoking and alcohol, because, you know, we all hear about closet eating and that kind of stuff. So it is an addiction. And I would encourage anybody out here watching that if you know somebody that's struggling with it, to offer support. And when you are eating, to think twice about what you're providing for food. If you know somebody's struggling with their weight and you're going out to dinner with them, or they're coming to your house, or vice versa, you want to, you know, offer to bring or serve
Right.
a healthier choice,
Don't
because
tempt.
it goes right back to what we talked about, the environment. If it's there, people are
We all
going
know
to
what
eat
it's
it.
like to be in a place with all the good and bad foods in front of you, like a buffet line or something, and you think, I'm not getting my money's worth, I should have some of that. No, not really.
No.
That's where you have your biggest test.
Yeah,
And if you can get through that without feeling, and I don't like the word cheating, because it always is such a pejorative, it's just too much, you're a naughty person because you cheated. But I was told once by someone that was dieting, they were told to, when they're going to have a little treat, announce it. Don't hide it and feel guilty about it. Just say, guess what? I just had half a cookie and I loved it. Just be healthy about it and make fun of it if you have to, but
don't hide
it
it.
is hard.
Yeah, don't hide it.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I don't know. And again, we don't also claim to be professionals here. We just read a lot.
Read a lot, and also from experiences with working with people
Yep.
and some of the areas that they've struggled with.
Yep.
And when you are heavy or obese or overweight, whatever
Right.
term you want to use, the physical activity it is difficult. It's more of a challenge for somebody to even think about walking
Right.
half a mile or whatever. It's joint issues, it's muscular, it's skeletal.
Yeah.
It really puts a lot of pressure on the body. So it's harder for them to even think about physical activity.
Yep.
So again, going back to what we've said before, and for those that haven't watched, we like to
Shame on
say, yeah, shame on you. Where have you been? We need you here. Some great information, but it's about movement,
Yep.
and not to scare people away from
Don't say
saying,
exercise.
don't say
Then they
exercise.
picture machines and gyms.
Yeah, and I got to stand on my head and touch my
cannot-
toes.
We will never diminish what just a brief walk will do for you. And the good part of that is usually a brief walk will lead to a slightly longer walk, and before you know it, you're lapping a track or a pond. or
Yeah.
something. I go into Hanover and I love to walk around Ockham Pond because
It's
it's a mile.
beautiful.
And
Yeah.
you can just, it's beautiful, and before you know it, you've got 3 or 4 miles under your belt.
Yeah,
If you make it scenic, fun. But again, we've used baby steps a lot too, because
Right.
this is hugely not hugely, I don't want to call it huge. Sorry.
It's okay.
Puns today.
A lot of 'em.
No, but it's an enormous problem to think of getting, we have a wonderful woman at the gym.
Mm-hmm.
I won't name her. She's lost 80 pounds, and she comes in the last several months, a lot of months. But she comes in and runs, and then she goes to the vigorous classes, and she's so proud and so pretty and so
no, that's
inspiring.
awesome. That's a great story.
And she gets all kinds of support because people have kind of watched this thing happen, and she's very inspiring.
Yeah.
And everything's improved for her.
And it's a hard to climb and to lose the weight.
Mm-hmm.
And so making sure that you go into it with that mindset of, I can do this,
Yeah.
I will do this.
Yes.
It's not when, it's
It's not if.
it's
when.
not if,
Yeah.
it's when.
But your doctor, this is also another case where if it's really an obesity problem, you need to
A
do
doctor.
this in concert with your doctor, because he may have a way of just kind of weaning yourself in and working into it, because you can't do all this yourself if you're very large.
Absolutely.
Medically, you need to be doing it right.
Yeah, and you need to have their backing and support. And
Totally. And check in, maybe if that's the one person that'll do it, you check in with your doctor.
Yeah.
You email them sometime and say, I'm down, and you're going to get a congratulatory email back.
Yeah, and it's very important to have your doctor be part of the process for sure. If it's to that
If you go
point,
crazy with exercise or something right off the bat,
Can't do
your
it.
heart isn't ready for it.
No.
Your respiratory system isn't ready
yeah,
for it.
your body's not ready for it.
But it happens all around us, and I don't know, I just think it's one thing that it's a word you don't want to hear about yourself. You don't want to be told that you're obese. It's a really bad word to hear.
Mm-hmm.
It really can undo people that hear it.
Yeah.
And overweight is one thing, and again, overweight isn't so hard to hear, but that is. But I know school nurses, where I used to work, they would make a comment home, and they got met with some very bad reactions when they did it. But she said, I've checked his eyes, I've checked his ears, and I've weighed her. She needs to be cutting, you need to help her
It's
with what the intake is.
and that's why the nurse is part of the community that's going to
Yes.
support and
But
help.
it was the parents really reacted poorly in a few cases, because hearing the eyes or the ears, that doesn't faze them. But hearing your child is slightly overweight, it's almost like a knife in your heart.
Yeah, it's a denial.
It is a
And-
denial.
yeah,
and they
and they
also
feel
know they're
guilty.
responsible
Right.
partly for it. They didn't cause the ear and eye stuff, but, so yeah, it's a very hard message, but I just congratulated the nurse for starting that program, because it is important for them to hear it from a medical person.
And hopefully that made a difference in that student's world, and the parents got the message, and she's in a better
Well,
place.
I hope so. You don't know, but I just think it's something we absolutely can't hide. I almost said it's bigger than all of us, but that was a very poor phrase. Sorry,
You're doing a lot of those.
I'm really stepping on it today.
Okay, Judy.
Or in it.
Yeah, in it. over
No,
it,
but I mean,
through
it
it.
is a big problem. You have to use big words about a big problem, about big people. I guess that's all I'm saying.
There you go.
Um, um,
So we need to help make a difference.
Yeah.
So people out there,
yeah,
us,
yep.
all the people around need to make a big change.
And if you feel this way about yourself, if you even know that you might be sort of avoiding a change, don't. Get someone that you can trust, and it can be a family, a friend, a nurse, a doctor. It can be almost anyone that you really believe in, and ask them to kind of go along the journey with you. They may not have any of the same needs, but they might be a willing rooter, cheerleader.
Yeah. The other thing is true with a population we didn't talk about is the senior population.
Yes.
As they become less sedentary and they're not doing as
Right.
much, some of them have a tendency to put on some pounds.
And I am one of them, and I will not let being senior change how I feel and act and go through life.
Right.
I won't.
So you got to fight it.
You got to fight it, and it's good for the family to see. It's good for my grandchildren to see that I'm not just sitting around eating candy. I
Right.
would never do that, but I certainly wouldn't start now.
No, I would hope not. And
Just because I feed you candy.
yeah, I know that surprises and treats. I love it. I love it. But it's that balance. I mean, and
Absolutely.
to go back to what you said, Judy, about celebrate or reward yourself when you have something, have a cookie or whatever
Right.
it is. No one has ever said that you shouldn't be able to have something that you enjoy,
Exactly right.
as long as you can find the balance of
Right.
taking out something else or burning more calories or whatever it is. So it's
But regimens that won't allow anything in the way of what you would call a treat, that's where you slip.
yeah.
Because you don't want to be told you can never have a cookie again in your life, or some chips, or a piece of chocolate. You just can't. You need that.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And it is okay, and you should celebrate success.
Yeah.
And it's then becoming the willpower. And there's someone at the gym that has been dealing with losing a lot of weight, and she has done an amazing job losing weight. And one of the things she said is that she doesn't reward herself. That's her choice. Is I am not going to have
Yep.
anything, because being a food addict,
Yep.
if I have one, I'm going to
And that's
continue
where
it.
self-awareness.
Exactly. And that's why it's different for everybody.
You have to know yourself. If you think one chip is going to lead to 20,
Then you
don't take the
celebrate
first one.
exactly. Celebrate
But-
another way.
There are other ways you can do it, and it isn't, just don't think of it as cheating. You're not being a bad person. You're just kind of not feeling deprived about every
Yeah.
single thing. So, anyway, we covered pretty much what we know about it.
Yeah, we talked about
And
what the health risks are of
Yep.
being obese. We talked about what causes obesity. We talked about what groups can help
Right.
make a difference.
Right, so if you get back into motion, moving, eating well, and making sure your life is somewhat balanced if you can, so that you
Yeah.
don't have a stress that says, I'm going to eat, I'm so mad.
Mm-hmm.
See what you can do about that, and that's a whole different area. But
And planning, making sure that you pick better choices and set the environment for, as a parent, and we're both parents, we
Yep.
want to make sure that what we've provided for our kids or provide for our grandkids or
Yep.
whatever it might be,
Yep.
is that it sets them up to be successful and not be put in a situation,
Yeah.
because you don't want that.
it's a very
for your kids.
generational thing if you want, if you work on it, because they're going to do what the person in charge tells them to do.
Yeah,
And if the food is on the table, that's what you eat.
yeah.
But every generation, I think, is getting more savvy about the different, like Mediterranean and paleo, and all that stuff that's good, no process, just a good, healthy food. And anyway, we've sounded like we know what we're talking about. We do, in a sense, because we've seen it, we
Seen
live
it,
it with
lived it.
people, and there's a lot of information out there if you want to look it up and get more medical help.
Yeah.
So,
So check with your doctor
Yep.
or contact us.
Yep.
We would love to work with
No
you
question.
in regards to any struggles or challenges.
give them your wellness.
Wellnessgameplan.com, and I'm on Facebook as well, so I'd love to help people along their journey and their path as
Yeah.
they're trying to
And
face
Patty's
this. I've done it.
wellness for a while now, and she knows it in and out.
Yeah.
I learn a lot from her. But it's something you can always talk with. She's
Yeah.
there all the time, or somewhere all the time.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant statement too. You're somewhere all the time.
I am somewhere
So
all the
am I.
time. I try to be
Anyway,
in more than one place,
We
but
like
that
to
doesn't
end
work.
shows with total nonsense, which I guess we just did. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please tune in again, and we're going to have a very, very exciting show in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we've got a
on
couple
very,
built up.
yeah, terrific, very important fact of life. So, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Judy.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye,
you,
all.
Patty.